I awoke to the sterile quiet of a hospital room. The cold, clinical scent of antiseptic filled my nostrils. An unfamiliar chill traced my spine, a frosty whisper of reality as I lay there, bewildered, on a bed too stiff to be my own. My mind, once a bustling metropolis of thoughts, was now a deserted ghost town, shrouded in a dense fog of confusion. No memory of how I arrived in this strange, unwelcoming place, no recollection of the events that led to this unexpected awakening. The room, albeit sterile, seemed to hold an air of uncanny familiarity. With each blink, my eyes adjusted to the harsh, unflattering light, revealing the room in all its cold, clinical glory. The walls, washed in a disheartening shade of pale green, stood silent witness to my disorientation. An array of monitors stood guard by my bedside, their constant rhythmic hum offering a semblance of life in this otherwise lifeless space. I strained my ears, hoping to catch the comforting sounds of a bustling hospital, the distant murmur of conversations, the soft patter of footsteps, the reassuring rhythm of routine. But all I was met with was an eerie silence, a void so profound it was almost deafening. It was as if the hospital itself had drawn a deep breath and held it, creating an unsettling stillness that seemed to echo my own heartbeat. The realization hit me then, like a jolt of electricity, sending a wave of cold dread coursing through my veins. I was alone, utterly, terrifyingly alone. The thought echoed in my mind, bouncing off the walls of my consciousness, growing louder with each passing second. A hospital, a place once teeming with life and activity, now stood as a chilling monument to solitude. A place meant to heal had turned into a labyrinth of fear and uncertainty. The humdrum of the monitors, the antiseptic scent, the unforgiving light, all these were bearable. But the silence, the absence of footsteps, the lack of distant conversations, that's what frightened me the most. As I lay there trying to make sense of my situation, fragments of my past began to surface. It was like trying to catch smoke with my bare hands, elusive and fleeting. Images flickered in my mind, distorted and out of focus. The screeching sound of tires skidding, the blinding flash of headlights, a thunderous crash. A car accident? Was I in a car accident? Another memory emerged from the fog of my mind. A figure, faceless and indistinct, shrouded in darkness. It stood in the shadows, looming and ominous. Was it a friend, an enemy, or perhaps a figment of my imagination, a phantom born from my confusion and fear? Then there was the dark alley. It was a narrow, constricting passage, its walls closing in. The echo of footsteps, my own perhaps, filled the space, bouncing off the cold, damp bricks. The stench of decay hung heavy in the air, a grim reminder of forgotten memories buried deep within. As these fragments surfaced, they left me more bewildered than before. Each memory was like a piece of a jigsaw puzzle, but the picture they formed was far from complete. The gaps were wide and many, the narrative disjointed and chaotic. It was a frustrating, terrifying ordeal, like trying to navigate through a maze in pitch darkness. Fear gnawed at my insides, a relentless beast that refused to be silenced. I was a prisoner in my own mind, trapped in the labyrinth of my forgotten past. The sterile silence of the hospital room seemed to amplify the turmoil within me, a stark contrast to the storm that raged in my head. But the more I remembered, the more I wished I could forget. The memories, or what little I could recall, were a chilling reminder of a past I was not ready to confront. They were ghosts that haunted me, shadows that lurked in the corners of my mind, waiting to strike when I least expected. But the more I remembered, the more I wished I could forget. A chill crept up my spine, as if I wasn't alone in this desolate place. The stark silence of the sterile room was broken by the erratic rhythm of my thudding heart, its beat echoing in my ears like a distant drum. The air, once neutral and indifferent, began to feel heavy and oppressive, as though the room itself was closing in on me. A shiver traced its icy fingers down my back, and I felt the hair on my arms prick up, as though electrified by some unseen force. I could feel a presence, an invisible entity, lurking in the farthest corners of the room, hiding in the shadows that the dim, flickering light could not reach. It was as though a pair of unseen eyes were studying me, their gaze piercing through the veil of my vulnerability. The sensation was unnerving, like 1,000 spiderwebs brushing against my skin, chilling me to the bone. A sense of dread began to claw its way up from the pit of my stomach, wrapping its cold fingers around my throat, threatening to choke the very life out of me. Desperation set in, and I screamed out for help, my voice echoing through the empty corridors, bouncing off the cold, clinical walls. My pleas for assistance were met with silence, a haunting reminder of the desolate emptiness that surrounded me. I could almost hear the mocking laughter of the unseen entity, its voice a mere whisper in the wind, a chilling reminder of my solitude. It reveled in my fear, feeding off my terror, growing stronger with every beat of my panicked heart. I was trapped in this sterile prison, my only companion the unseen presence that lurked in the shadows. Every nerve in my body screamed in terror, the oppressive weight of the unseen presence crushing me, keeping me rooted to the spot. I was alone, trapped in an endless cycle of fear and despair, my only company the eerie silence and the unseen entity that reveled in my fear. I was alone, but something told me I wasn't alone at all. The past started to come back to me, not as a comforting friend, but as a dark, twisted enemy. Memories, hazy and fragmented, began to surface from the depths of my subconscious. I could see flashes of a catastrophic accident, the deafening screech of metal against metal, the blinding lights, and amidst it all, a figure, a faceless figure, shrouded in an impenetrable darkness so ominous and eerie, it sent chills down my spine. But there was something different this time. As the fog in my mind started to clear, I realized that this faceless figure, this victim, wasn't pleading for help from me. No, they were pleading for mercy. My mind recoiled, struggling to reconcile the horrific revelation. I wasn't the savior in this twisted tale, but the villain. The laughter, the cruel, malevolent laughter that echoed in my mind, it was my own. I could hear it, see it, feel it. The joy I felt in their pain, the satisfaction in their fear. It was all me. I was responsible. The faceless figure was not just a victim of the accident, but a victim of my own sadistic pleasure. The realization was like a punch to the gut, leaving me breathless and filled with a chilling dread. I could feel the cold, clinical walls of the hospital closing in on me, the antiseptic scent growing stronger, more suffocating. I was trapped, not just within these four walls, but within the confines of my own monstrous past. As I sat there, alone in the echoing silence, I was overcome with a sense of horror. The horror of my own actions, the horror of the past that was slowly revealing itself, the horror of the faceless figure who was a victim of my monstrous nature. I was the monster they feared, the monster I now feared. As the pieces of my past fell into place, I was left with a chilling realization. In the echoing silence of the sterile hospital room, a new sound emerged, creeping into my consciousness like the slow drip of a leaky faucet. It was a distant, almost inaudible patter, the faint echo of footsteps growing louder, growing closer. A shiver of apprehension ran down my spine, each hair on my neck standing on end as the realization dawned. I wasn't alone. An instinctual fear gripped me, the primal dread of the unknown. I tried to call out, to scream for help, but my voice was a mere whisper, a raspy croak swallowed by the oppressive silence. I strained to hear, to decipher the source of the sound, but the sterile walls of the hospital room bounced the echoes around, warping the direction of the noise. Was it a nurse? A doctor? Or was it something more sinister? As the footsteps drew nearer, the rhythmic tap-tap-tap of shoe against tile drilled into my mind, the cadence of an impending nightmare. My heart pounded in my chest, throbbing in sync with the footsteps, as if it too were trying to escape the impending dread. I felt the cold sweat break out on my forehead, the chill of the hospital room seeping into my bones. I was trapped, a rabbit cornered by a predator, waiting for the inevitable. And then, the footsteps stopped. The silence returned, but it was a different kind of silence now. It was the silence before a storm, the silence of anticipation. I could hear the faint rustle of fabric, the soft creaking of weight shifting, and then the sound I had been dreading, the sound that made my blood run cold. The door handle turned slowly, grating against the silence. It creaked open, each millimeter of movement echoing in the oppressive quiet. I held my breath, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest, my mind racing with horrific possibilities. The door handle turned slowly, and as it began to creak open, I braced myself for the horror that awaited on the other side.